Guys, is becoming a digital nomad the only way to beat the cost of living crisis? You see, one thing that I've seen a lot over the past month or two is the fact that people work full time, they come home exhausted, and they don't have any money to spend. They're living in apartments that they can barely afford, if they can even afford to rent, not buy, an apartment or a house share. It's not working at all. Some people might be comfortable with putting in their all and getting the bare minimum. I am not, right? And this has filled me with a lot of anxiety because I'm realising that I can't even benefit from the work that I'm putting in. I've never wanted a 9 to 5, fair enough, but at least I knew that it was a path that could actually lead to me having some success or a potential backdrop if everything else fails. Now I'm starting to realise, after working 9 to 5, I am exhausted, I am worn out, and I barely have enough. In fact, no, I don't have enough to live an independent adult life in my own place and all that sort of stuff. Something's not working here. And like I say, some people may be comfortable just scraping by. I am not. The concept of becoming a digital nomad, therefore, is something that's very interesting to me. You guys who've been watching since day one will know that the eBay selling journey has been a big one for me. I've always been interested in running my own businesses, and I always have, right? But being a digital nomad as a genuine path is a deeper plunge, right? It's a deeper plunge and a commitment to a certain lifestyle. But I think it might be the only way to beat the cost of living crisis that we're facing at the minute. Because, like I say, the jobs aren't working. So how do you do this? What does it look like? And what can you expect from a lifestyle like this? There's something that I'm trying to discover myself. I don't profess to have the answers on this topic, but here's the thing, right? Property prices in the UK are basically unfeasible for anyone that's not got rich parents or is willing to put in 50 plus hours a week. And that's either to have a decent rental place in most big cities or obviously a mortgage even more, right? So it's very unfeasible. But we see that there are ways to cut your costs of living exponentially. Potentially, it could be the idea of van life and travelling the world or travelling Europe or even just travelling the UK and living in a van and cutting your costs that way. Or one thing that's potentially interesting me more and more as time goes on is looking at moving to a cheaper European country like Spain. Now the UK is a great place to live if you're rich. If you're not, it's very miserable a lot of the time. But a place like Spain has sunshine. It has a good tourist economy that you could potentially capitalise upon. But here's the thing, right? Let's just say Spain, for example. It's just one example. A lot of people go to Thailand, a lot of people go to Indonesia, and I'm not saying I'm not saying I'm even going to move to Spain. It's just a thought in my head, and I'm explaining that to you guys, right? Even if you're going to move to the cheapest country in the world, you need money. Now, savings are one thing, but the trouble with savings, whether it's £100 or £100,000, savings are finite. And if you're my age, right, even if I had £100,000 and went to live in the cheapest country in the world, there's a high probability it will run out one day. If you're trying to buy a property, if you're trying to live a reasonable life. But here's the thing. This is where the idea of becoming a digital nomad comes in. You're not fixed to any job. You're not fixed to any location. And in this time in the world, I think that is a necessity almost. I think it really is. Because whether it's the UK, whether it's other countries around the world, we are seeing the dynamics in the world shift a lot, right? Places where people have come to for prosperity and success, it seems like that's becoming almost impossible. You know, it's funny because I had a guy, a friend of mine from work, come from Pakistan to the UK, and he said when he came from Pakistan to England, he saw the salaries of like £30,000, and he's like, oh my god, I'm going to be rich. But he realises how little he can put into savings after living in the UK. Anyway, that's just one point of the topic. What I'm saying is we're seeing a point where people, just like my friend, like I just named, are coming here and they're realising that it's not that economically better off. Yes, safety in the UK is a huge thing. It's a very safe country. You know, standard of life is still very decent. I'm not trying to diss the UK. I see a lot of videos where people complain it's a perfectly acceptable place to live. But, and here's a big thing, if you are career focused, if you are nothing but lifestyle orientated and you want to have fun, or maybe even something else if you're following a mission, it's probably not the place, right? If you've got a professional career, let's be honest, you can go find yourself a job in the US, Australia, or New Zealand that pays much better and genuinely probably provides a better quality of life, whether that's in terms of the sunshine, the experience and novelty of living in a different country, right? So a lot of those people, career people, want to leave the UK, especially a lot of the young ones that I've spoken to. Then we have the other sort of people like myself, right? I've never really wanted a 9 to 5 job, but the idea of working a couple of hours to get by is very clearly unfeasible. You can do it if you want to live in a bedroom in your parents' house until you're 35, and then what's the plan after that? It's undoable, right, to have your own place. But that's not the case in some countries in the world. Some countries in the world, the income that you make in your part-time job could be very good. Some countries in the world, the income that I make online would probably set me up as basically a king. And here's what I'm trying to discover and explain. Being a digital nomad, someone who's genuinely not tied to a location, is not tied to any economic stresses or problems faced in one geographical location, right? If the money is able to be made in the US and I have the means to get there financially, obviously visas and all that sort of stuff is very different, but that's a topic for a different video on someone else's channel. But if I have the financial means to move to the US, support myself for maybe 6 months until I can find a job and then get better off, I can do that if I've got no locational dependence. If I decide, you know, it's October, it's dark right now outside and it's 4 PM in England, I've had enough. I can just say, oh, well, I've got the money to move to, I don't know, Thailand. It's just an example, but you see the point. Now, that's one part of it. The fact that you can chase a better standard of life in other parts of the world. The fact that you can also live a lifestyle that probably suits you more. But also, here's the thing. There's also the potential for a massive increase in income. You see, when I go to work, and due to the fact that I've signed a contractual obligation, the same is probably true for you, I almost guarantee it is. If you're working for £50 an hour, you get 50. If you're working for £10 an hour, you get 10. That's just the way of the world. When I work online, I will admit there is a risk that I will make zero. It's not guaranteed. But I could make £1,000 a day. I had one day selling on eBay this week where I made £735 in revenue, not profit, but still, right? Decent numbers in profit too, well over £250. So that's the kind of lifestyle that can afford you freedom. It's the kind of lifestyle that can afford you a better lifestyle. It's a kind of career path that is not limited. And here's a beautiful thing, right? Even if you want to live in the UK long term, it could still be financially beneficial for you to become a digital nomad, in the sense that, look, let's say I was to buy a cheap camper van and explore Europe. What's going to happen? Well, I'm probably going to save a lot of money because, I'm not going to lie, the cheapest places, room shares or house shares I can find in my city are about £600 a month roughly, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less. So realistically, you're spending between, at the very, very lowest, £5,000 to £10,000 in rent, minus other expenses. You know, I could travel Europe for that money in a van, probably open my mind to a lot of things and experience a lot of things that I wouldn't have otherwise seen if I have the financial means to do so. Also, doing this in a country like England, like USA, like France, provides you with a great privilege. You have the means to start making money easily. Everyone watching this video has access to the internet. You know, that's a privilege. And obviously, we have also access to a strong currency, the euro, the pound, the dollar, etc. You know, there's a lot of opportunity for people looking to make money online. And again, the biggest thing that I'm thinking about at the minute for this, in fact, no, I know that this is a path that I want to follow, because I know that I don't, it doesn't make sense to me, it never has. I'm not dissing anybody, right? And some people might say I'm unrealistic, time will tell, right? But I've never understood the concept of being born 5 miles away, moving into a place 10 miles away, and getting a job 5 miles in between. You've got this big world out there, and you're going to live in this tiny spot of the world for your whole life. That doesn't make sense to me. But here's the thing, even if it did, it's still unviable nowadays, because you will get priced out of your area possibly soon. A lot of people already have been. With that being the backstory, what is the alternative? You might wait 20 years plus before you get into a position in your career where you can afford to buy a house, and that's because living costs are eating up so much of your income. Imagine if you could reduce living costs by 50%, make British pounds online or American dollars or whatever, live in Spain for half the price or live in Thailand for a quarter of the price, then come back to buy a house because of the money that you've saved. Imagine the experience of that. So for me, at the minute, all of my effort is going into my online businesses. And I was going to start a lot of physical reselling businesses. I don't think that's the point. It's going to tie me to a location. As many sort of drop shipping / online teaching / selling businesses that I can start, I am going to be doing. Because, look, it's crazy to say, but in a city like Manchester, £4,000 a month income is realistically what you want to be living in the city centre. In certain countries in the world, I reckon about £4,000 a year would be on the very low end, but probably of a doable, livable experience, right? Why? Why are people paying £700 for a flat 10 minutes away from where they were born? I don't understand it. Maybe my opinions will change, but honestly, the more I get out into the world, the more I get out into the world of work, the world of building businesses, the world of interacting with people, the traditional path is actually making less sense. People might say, well, you've got your job now and you're probably making a stable income, which is true, but it's making less sense. I'm seeing myself in a path that I'm not enjoying. Anyway, that's it. Thank you for watching. See you soon.